Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Joanne Leatherman, and we want to welcome you to part 2 of the Well-Connected Communities Master Volunteer Online Curriculum. We hope that you were able to see our part 1 aired on June 6, 2018, where we provided an overview of the program, shared some sample training agendas, and presented the expected competencies. But if you missed that, you'll find that it's already on the Well-Connected Communities website, and we'll show you where that is today. Today we're going to provide a brief overview of the Master Volunteer Program in case you missed the June 6th webinar, give you a tour on e-extension to show you where the modules live, and then share the competencies and content overview for the remaining modules provided by the Well-Connected Community National Leadership Team. I'm joined today by Andy Crocker from Texas and Dr. Lisa Washburn from Arkansas, who are using the curriculum they have developed for Master Wellness Volunteers and Extension Wellness Volunteers in their respective states to provide 40% of a foundational curriculum for all well-connected community LGUs to use.
So the Well-Connected Communities Master Health Volunteer Program is for people who want a deeper level of engagement. Just like your states probably have volunteers of all sorts, but then there are Master Gardener volunteers or Master Naturalist volunteers, and those who want to step up, take on additional roles and responsibilities with the Extension Service, leverage more outreach and education. This is an opportunity for interested volunteers to do the same thing related to health and wellness, but there may only be a few of these volunteers as the Well-Connected Communities Initiative gets underway. And in general, again, we're not trying to convert every volunteer that we have to a well-connected community volunteer or to a volunteer for health and wellness. In this first wave of the Well-Connected Communities project, only the innovator communities are expected to form master health volunteer programs with trained leaders. Implementer communities are to have explored the master volunteer concept, and planner community should be getting youth and adult volunteers engaged, but not necessarily as master volunteers. So what we'd like you to keep in mind is that when well-connected community master volunteers serve, they are representatives of the Extension Service. To call them a paraprofessional workforce is probably a stretch, but to think of them as an extension of your office or of your workforce is not out of the realm. And they're there to serve the county, which then feeds up into the state and then feeds into this national project and other national initiatives. The information they present has to be accurate, just like our audiences expect the information that we present to be accurate, and it must be research-based. If the volunteers ever have questions about what materials can be used, what materials should be used, how we should present certain materials, they should always work with and through the County Extension Office, the County Extension faculty, as that touchstone, that first line of information to determine if the material is appropriate and from a reliable source.
Volunteers will receive 40 hours of face-to-face training, and there are several options for how this might be delivered in a county setting. Actually, let me back that up. They will receive 40 hours of training, and one of those options is for it to be face-to-face. There also are some options for online modules and for self-study, or you might choose to offer a hybrid of the two. In addition to this research-based training related to health and nutrition, volunteers will be expected to complete 40 hours of service within the first year. Part of the service might include teaching, but it doesn't have to include teaching. There are lots of ways that volunteers can be engaged with the program and return their service hours back. It is expected that each volunteer will submit a monthly report that includes the volunteer hours that they logged and also reflects the activities they participated in for that previous month. We do have recruitment materials, template for name badges for those certified master volunteers, and a certificate of completion available for you.
So 40% of the training that we are expecting you to use comes from these foundational modules that we're talking about today. The other 60% can come from your own curriculum, from state health priorities, resources you already have in your handy bag, and they might be dictated by the health issues selected by the communities. Additional learning opportunities could be a community workshop on something related to the community issue, or a project such as finding the county health ranking for your county and exploring the needs that surface from that assessment. Training can include planning for a group activity that all will do. It could be a teaching session practice provided by the volunteer and constructively viewed by the extension agent. Face-to-face training can be at different times and different venues for youth and adults because of scheduling around work and school.
And with the idea of trying to make something that fits for the volunteers and for their schedule and for your schedule for that matter, we've kind of put together a nice complement of online learning activities that you can either host in your office with groups of volunteers, or that you can assign as asynchronous learning opportunities for them to do on their own. We also have agendas available for our programs here in Texas and Lisa's program in Arkansas that are available upon request. You can let Shay or Joanne know if you'd like copies of those. What you see on the screen is an example of the quote-unquote menu we provide to county extension agents here in Texas, so that they can see what courses are part of the training, and then if they have the ability to assign an online course, show an online video in a room full of volunteer trainees, or host a face-to-face educational opportunity. Even with our model here in Texas being a hybrid implementation model where they can assign online courses if they choose, we do have a lot of counties that still want that face-to-face contact with their volunteers and choose to host all 40 hours in person. And I think the Arkansas program is set up so that most of the training, if not all of the training, basically occurs in person with some self-study.
On this slide, you can see the URL for where the master volunteer slides live. So if you were to click on this, it would take you to the volunteer training modules that are up already. Or you can go to the Well Connected Communities webpage and click on professional development for a drop down that says master volunteers.
And here's a view if you haven't been on the website yet, because some of our participants this afternoon are in wave 2 readiness mode, but this is what your well-connected community homepage looks like. And as Lisa said, if you click on where it says professional development, a drop-down will come, and the master volunteer training modules are one of the drop-down options that you have. So if you can't access the home page now, you can contact your PI to ask for login credentials. And if you are not currently a well-connected community pilot site and you want to take a look at that, let us know, and we'll see if we can get you the credentials so you can go in and look around at this. But it may be confusing to our volunteers to think of themselves as professionals. But I think in terms of we are going to have them perform like professionals, that's why it's logged under the professional development tab on this website.
So as you advance past the homepage to the training module page, you'll see the ones that are currently available and been approved by, up the chain and back down again, that are available there for you. The overview of the program, the extension history and overview, what is a culture of health, and on and on. Most of these do include the recorded presentation, but also a scripted PowerPoint and a handout. But these are the ones that are available currently, and we're going to tick through a couple of them now, I think.
Volunteer overview tab. If you click on that, it's going to pull up a PowerPoint presentation from when all of this started. It will show you the content for the modules. That'll be a document that we'll download. There's also a document there that is frequently asked questions that you can look at. And then the sample volunteer training agendas are there also. So there's two slides, the one slide that Andy just discussed that had, now I have lost my train of thought. We haven't discussed agendas. We looked at the matrix that said what was available online from Texas and what was not. Sorry. All the agendas are here on this particular tab. So if you go to Master Volunteer Overview, you'll be able to download all of that.
The first module is a history of extension, and this is probably the only module that isn't pick up and run ready. It needs to be customized for your state. So the history of extension writ large, the idea behind extension, its early origins as a national institution, et cetera, going through the Morrill Acts and Smith-Lever and Seaman-Knapp and all of that is in there for you. But it needs to be customized for your state to pick up your land grant, your mission, maybe a funny story about your first county extension agent in your state. So there is some customization that needs to be done with this presentation. And so for this presentation, there is no recording, there is no video. It is still a scripted PowerPoint, but you'll see places in there where you need to change out logos, you need to change out information to really highlight the history of extension in your state and in your community.
Module for look at is what is a culture of health, and you'll notice here that there is a video and then there's also a PowerPoint presentation and a study guide. So a master volunteer trainee who is doing the self-study option might opt to watch the video and then review the discussion guide and review the study guide and answer the discussion questions. If a volunteer was in a county that had a community that had opted to do in-person delivery, then the county extension professional might use that PowerPoint presentation and deliver it themselves, deliver the lesson content, and then also use the study guide as support materials.
Okay, so Lisa and Andy reviewed the first two modules, and those are the two that we are hopeful your trainees will start with. Number one is an overview of extension and our basic well-connected community program to give them some context for what they're doing. And then module two, what is a culture of health, which was actually recorded by Dr. Michelle Rogers, our National Project Director, and Monica Hobbs-Vindelwin, our contact from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So those two are set in order so that those who are being trained have a context for the rest of them. These will establish the base to start from, and then after that, modules can be viewed in any order. So if you want to tailor that from your state, maybe you have some training that you want to have them do between modules 2 and 3 or 3 and 5 or whatever, you can insert that in your program, or you can go through these in any order that you see. It says to see the handout in the resource section for today's webinars to see the slides on 1 through 6. Actually, now that we've got the site live, you can go back and look at all the modules on the home page. I didn't go through them all, although I'm sitting here thinking, maybe we should have. But we're going to go now to pick up number 7 and go from there. Module number 7 is marketing for the well-connected master volunteers. This was done by a member of Council's marketing staff, Sarah Allen, because we thought marketing was an important area for our master volunteers to think about. They want to tell the story of their work. They might want to tell the story of your project. They should understand as they plan projects in collaboration with your wellness council or with the extension agent, how to market a program, what to tell, how to determine your outlets, how to get other people to participate, because we want this to be a far-reaching community-wide effort to deal with the health issues of the communities. And so this module is to help them understand that, helping them think about making a communication plan, what their message is, and make sure it's clear for others to understand, and planning for some of the outcome of the marketing efforts. So we're hoping that those who access this module will learn where to find the well-connected communications toolkit, because there are additional resources there that will help them. They'll make a marketing plan and tell the story of their work to inform others and gain more support.
The module on understanding and using data is brought to us by our friends at County Health Rankings and Roadmaps, and they, through the University of Wisconsin, kind of support the County Health Ranking and Roadmaps website. And so this module essentially helps the volunteers understand how public data is used to determine where a county ranks in healthiness within its state. They learn how to use, or they go through a guided tour of the County Health Rankings and Roadmaps site to learn how to find their own community data, and then they can become competent in using this data to facilitate health action plans for communities. And we talked a little bit about the study guide. And so when you access the study guide for this module, it encourages them to go offline or to go outside of the webinar and to look for data related to their county or their community. And it really is to kind of do some hands-on learning after watching the module. If you are doing this as an in-person session with your volunteers, this is something that you could assign them as an on their own study, or it's something that you could go through as a group to do further discussion and maybe talk to them about, because our data points are X, Y, and Z, this is why our health coalition, or this is why we do the programming that we do in our community.
Module 9 has to do with chronic disease, and we expect that volunteers will learn the basics about common chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease, including their risk factors, prevention, and how to manage those chronic diseases. So trainees will learn about the chronic disease burden in America. They'll also learn about common risk factors for chronic disease prevention, and then also strategies for chronic disease management. Module 10 is Principles of Adult Learning. We know that adults learn differently from children, and that volunteers will need to adapt their teaching techniques and strategies to include adult learners' unique needs, life experiences, and preferences. So in this module, trainees will learn about the different styles of learning. They'll learn about principles of adult learning theory and how those might be applied to their project work, and then also strategies for working with adult learners through their well-connected community volunteer work.
Module 11 will be Principles of Youth Learning, and we're using a backdrop of positive youth development. which we promote through our extension work as the backdrop for this module. So positive youth development is a model guiding the communities so that how they organize their programs, support and provide opportunities for young people to develop their full potential. This module will include the essential elements of 4-H youth development, which focuses on belonging, courage, generosity, independence, and mastery. So we're hoping that participants will learn how to shape their program so they will maximize the opportunities for youth to learn and grow. One of the very attractive parts of well-connected communities that attracted Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to our extension programs is our emphasis on youth leadership. And I've heard some stories around with our pilot states on how youth are at the tables and in many cases, depending on the community, and helping to lead some of the work that we are doing to change the health for people in the pilot communities. Next slide, please, Lisa.
In the demonstrations and public speaking, we basically emphasize that through all the training activities and discussion that they're well equipped to go out and be quote unquote paraprofessional educators in their community, but speaking in front of the group may be one of the hardest things we ask them to do. And in fact, in the introduction to that module, I tell them that speaking in front of a group that I may not know in a room that I've never been in before on a topic is probably the hardest part of my job. I know my material, but getting up in front of the group may be the hardest thing that I have to do about it. So in that module, we're going to talk about principles of sound public speaking, elements of a communication cycle, and how they need to be listening and responding to their audience, even if the audience isn't really speaking. And then we spend a lot of time with developing clear and concise messages. So what you'll find is the public speaking part of it is not that long. I think it's about 30 minutes. And then we've got some worksheets to help them to develop their message, to develop their 2793. We're taking that page from the County Health Rankings and Roadmaps group. And I think many of you who were at the training last December went through that exercise where you develop your elevator, your stairwell speech, and then we develop like a broader message from that. So they spend a lot of time developing that message. And if you're doing it with a group, we encourage them to then share and practice delivering that message.
Module 13 is exercise recommendations. So we know that exercise is really important for having good health, but that most people in the United States, most American adults, do not meet the minimum recommendations. And we want to make sure that volunteers know about what the exercise recommendations are and the types of exercises that are types of exercise needed for functional fitness. In this module, trainees will learn about the difference between exercise and physical activity. They'll learn about the types of exercise recommended. That includes balance, flexibility, endurance, and strengthening. And then we'll also provide some examples of exercises within these areas to meet the recommendation.
For the cultural diversity and inclusion, we really want to emphasize that cooperative extension serves everyone, regardless of any type of identifying characteristic, race, social status. And so in this, we have them define and examine diversity and its impact and explore their own attitudes towards working with different audiences and identify successful strategies in working with these diverse audiences. And it really does kind of take the emphasis of looking at all characteristics, because often we only think about race or ethnicity, but what we find here in Texas is 30% of our efforts related to Master Wellness volunteers are done with our Better Living for Texans or our SNAP Ed audiences. And so we really want to emphasize that diversity and inclusion is all types of inclusivity, not just race and ethnicity.
Okay, to give you a little bit to chew on for what our future work from this committee will be with the online curriculum, we're going to develop a bank of questions and answers for the 14 nationally provided modules for states to use if they want to have a qualifying exam at the end of their well-connected master volunteer training. We're going to be doing some sharing of what the state provided modules are for the total training packages by the pilot LGUs. I've got a Zoom meeting set up for early November with the point of contacts for the state curriculums so we can start exploring how we can build on each other's work and help strengthen our total program by working together. And down the road, we're going to celebrate the successes master volunteers are identified and trained. And then Lisa and Andy and I are looking at wave 2, hoping to provide some training for the professional around volunteer management. How do you develop your curriculum vitae for promotion and tenure work with volunteers helping you to carry out your work, and other enhancements related to this very important work with our volunteers.
So some upcoming events for which you can be aware and put on your calendars. We'll have office hours, which are basically to help troubleshoot, answer questions, get ideas, whatever, on November 13th, and those will be at 10 a.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Eastern. Both sessions will basically cover the same materials writ large, because at the link that I just put in the chat box, which didn't go to everyone, and so I'm going to redo it now. At the link I just put in the chat box, you can register for that and submit questions in advance. And so the questions that get submitted in advance we'll cover at both sessions, the 10 and the 3. And then we'll try to respond to any questions that come up on the fly. So while you don't need to plan on attending both, the content may differ ever so slightly, if only because we're going to try to respond to questions as they come up. Once you register, you'll get the Zoom meeting information so that you'll know how to join.
Thank you guys for attending the session today. We do have a little bit of time for questions, and I've seen some popping up in the chat. So I'm going to stop the screen share right now. We'll look at some of those chat questions.
One of the questions are, there are only 7 modules on eExtension's website. The rest of the modules are still under development and they're not available right now. And we're adding them as soon as we can get them through the approval process, get the tweaks made and put them up for you. So yes, now that we have the tabs open and we can see our pathway, the webmaster who's working with us on this doesn't take long to upload what we have. The part of the thing is making sure the videos are edited correctly and everything matches, and it's been quite a long journey. But yes, we'll keep putting them on. 8 through 14 will be up as soon as we can get them through all these approvals and tweaks and everything that we need to do.
Yeah. So Joanne, I just wanted to point out to Andy, to you, Andy and Lisa, that we have a couple of questions that have been asked. So just if you can take a look at the chat box and make sure that we're addressing each of their questions.
Sure. Yep, no problem. Another question that I see is, could some of the training that the youth community members have already received through well-connected community trainings and meetings be substituted for the master volunteer modules and training? For example, you mentioned that some of this was already done at the February event at which well-connected community members were in attendance. I guess just off the top of my head, maybe my team needs to talk of this a little bit further, but I would think we would need to take that on a state-by-state basis and see what, who was there and what you were done. If you're comfortable that the content matches, I don't see a problem with it, but we probably ought to connect on that and get you an answer that we all agree to. So I'll kind of table that for a little while. Sorry, Trina, but we'll get together soon and get that back to you. The next question is, will all 14 modules be available for us to download and add our own state's branding? I'm not sure, Mary Alice, what you mean about branding. One of the approvals that we have to get is from Robert Wood Johnson's marketing firm, and they are specifically looking at the branding and expecting us to use the PowerPoint template that we have. So I'm not sure what you mean by add your own state's branding, but that would be something we'd have to discuss too.
Joanne, it's Mary Alice.
Yeah.
Our own state's logo, our own extension logo.
Well, what we've done with some of the modules that we've taken from other places, like the understanding data and how to use it, that actually was done by the University of Wisconsin. And there's not a problem with adding a logo at the beginning, but the PowerPoint template itself is branded with well-connected communities. It doesn't have National 4-H Council. It doesn't have Robert Wood Johnson. It doesn't have Arkansas or Texas. So I'm not really sure how you would do that without not using the template. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I thought I was under the impression that we were going to be able to add our own branding to the slide decks. So I need to go back and tell our team whether we can add our branding or not. So
is it a good thing to add it at the portal where your folks might access your state modules?
So where will we be downloading these and putting them on our, so I should take this offline because I think it's a little bit more, we're not going to just use these for well-connected communities. We're using these for all of our Master Health and Wellness volunteer.
Okay.
Everything. So
how about if I connect you with the members of our team that are working in marketing and you all work this out? I don't know enough of what you'd like to do, and what they would know what's possible.
And I should connect them with our marketing.
Yeah, I think we need to let the marketing folks, and Andy or Lisa or Shay, if you have other thoughts, please let me know. But I think if we connect marketing to marketing and they can work this out. But that template was done so that the slides themselves would be well-connected communities.
Yeah, my impression was we were going to be able to have the well-connected communities and Penn State. And I like, for example, the Texas A&M modules. The Texas A&M would be there, well-connected communities, and then we could add a Penn State logo in there somewhere. That was my impression that what was going to happen.
Well, one of the reasons that this has taken a while is that we've abandoned the Texas logo, the Arkansas logo, and every logo, and having to put everything over into this approved template that has no logo. So let me connect connect your folks with our folks and see what we can work out. And you're using this for a greater master wellness volunteer.
Master Health and Wellness Volunteer.
Okay.
Developing tracks. One of the tracks would be a well-connected communities track. So if we have a volunteer that's going to work in this area, then they would do more training in this area. But if somebody was doing a track and physical activity, we need to talk to Lisa because we're interested in her physical activity track or module. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're going to do this as our 40%, and then we're going to allow volunteers to select tracks, whether it's nutrition, physical activity, well-connected communities. So,
Okay, that makes sense. All right, well, I'll connect you. I'll send you an email after this is over and connect you with Sarah Allen from our team, and then you can connect with the Penn State marketing, and we'll work this out.
All right, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Trina says, is it expected that the innovator communities have completed the training and volunteer hours prior to April 2019? Is it expected that those trained pass this exam? Here again, this is kind of off the top of my head. The exam part is up to whether your states want an exam or just want them to complete the modules. And you have other ways of verifying that they've absorbed the information. Whether the innovator communities have completed the training and volunteer hours prior to April 2019, that's really a sprint. I think that, I don't know how that you can have it all done by April 2019, unless someone wants to negate who's actually working with this program in the field. I don't see how you're going to get it all done and by April. As long as your program is up and you have volunteers and they're being trained, I don't know how you can get that through the training and also 40 hours of service prior to April 2019. Yes, Mary Alice, we will send today's slide deck. Emily wants to know if we have an ETA for modules 8 to 14. There are 2 more that are under approval right now that would bring us to 9. So we're working on it as fast as we can get through all I don't want to say hurdles, through all the approvals that are necessary to do that.
But Emily, as an alternative, and I'm going to throw this out and make Joanne think on the fly. You know, there are training modules available through Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service already online.
Right.
And so if you are able to, and I'm glad to work with you, Joanne, Lisa, to try to figure out what gets you on kind of a parallel track. Now it's going to be through A&M's online course system. They're going to get a certificate from Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, and on and on and on. But if the November-December timeframe is what you're looking at, I think we can probably craft what you need based on what's been approved through Robert Wood Johnson and National 4-H, and then what we already have existing on a separate platform. It might be a little hairy for your volunteers, but if you hold on tight, we'll get you through it.
Okay, let's see. Thank you, Andy. Another question, Belinda wants to know if there is a form available for master volunteers to submit their hours to you. Not at the present, but we can put that on our work list if you want. I don't think that would be a problem. Now, Donna wants to know, can we use our state branding with flyers, etc.? If you look at the customizable flyers that are in the communications toolkit already, there's one that's aimed towards adults, or anyone. It could be anyone. And then there's one that's aimed more towards students, whether they be youth in high schools or college students, because or anyone who's in school. It refers to, maybe you can use your volunteer hours and your training for credit in your schoolwork, and that wouldn't be appropriate necessarily for adults. So there are 2 flyers already there that are fully customizable. You can drop your logo, put your training dates in, whatever you want to do, and that's already in the communication toolkit. Let's see. Again from Donna, what deliverables will be expected from innovator communities related to this, given the amount of information that still needs to be released and viewed before training? Would the innovator deliverable be just training? I can't, Donna, that's embedded in the logic models. And I would have to talk to the powers that be about anything related to that. You've got your 40% to do. I don't know if you're thinking that they will go through the modules, the 40% that we're providing first, and then go through your other, or back and forth, or whatever. Maybe I think you're part of the contact for Purdue. And if you can be on that meeting that we have in early November with all the, or office hours on November 13th, maybe we can have a discussion about that.
Yeah, Joanne, this is Donna, and thank you for that. I think one of the questions, I think it's been hard for us to, we know kind of the outline about what's been created because we've met with Lisa and we kind of know what's available. But until our folks really see it, they really were hesitating about moving ahead and training people, not knowing how they're going to train them if they haven't seen what they're going to train them on, right? So I think one of the concerns was, and you've talked about this a little bit, it would be a real sprint to try to get everything done. And I know the deliverables talked about, as long as you have one person trained, that would be great. And so we're just kind of looking at, practically speaking, we're looking at training after the first of the year. So. Okay.
Do you have your state modules?
Not yet. That's part of the issue. We don't really have a volunteer training curriculum per se right now. And so, and the one that we have, has some of the same things that are going to be coming from national. Now, I think when we talk on November 8th, that's going to be really helpful, because I know when we had the harvest session, I got to talk to some other states, and there's some things that I think we can absolutely use from other states. So that'll be helpful. But the whole idea, until you know what's there, it's hard to really figure out how to put it together.
I understand. Thank you, Donna.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts from anybody else? Lisa or Andy, anything you'd like to contribute? Okay. Well, if not, then we appreciate everybody's time. We can pick this up in office hours on the 13th, or the state module discussion group that I'll have November 8th, and we'll see what works out. Thank you all very much for your time and for your questions. We like that too. Bye-bye.